When I open up a design in DesignShop, a lot of the elements and different levels of those elements appear on the right-hand side of my screen in the project view. The project view has three different tabs. The first one is the project tab. That's the one that I do a lot of my work in. The next one is the stitches tab. This contains a ton of information. It gives you the X and Y location of every single needle penetration. It gives you the change in X, the change in Y, and then the column that I look at is the length. And the reason that I look at this one is when I have a design that's giving me a lot of issue and I think that it might be giving me thread breaks because my stitches are too short, I can scan down this column and see, do I have a bunch of those numbers in the L column, the length column, that's falling below 10? If I do, I know that that's probably where my problem area is, and I know how to go back in and fix it, or at least where to focus. The Navigator shows the view window in red, so I can click on this box and move this box around, and it will move my view window around. But the majority of the time I am spending in the project view. And the project view works with a kind of hierarchy, and there are different levels. And the level that you select depends, let me try that again. The level that you select will affect how many things that you can change in the design when you're going to properties. So if I select at the top level, so this level up here, I can affect everything within a design. If I select at the design level, I will select and affect everything within a single design. Now, because this design only has because this project only has one design in it, these are acting kind of the same way. However, if I were to insert a second design into this project file, so I'm going to do insert file, I'm going to grab 2day and bring that in. So now I have two designs in the file. We can get kind of a picture of what this looks like. If I select at the project level, that's the very top level, it will select everything in the project. I can select and adjust both birds, or all three birds. If I select at the design level, I will affect only the design that I have selected. So now I could change, for instance, I could go in and change the density of all the satin stitches in the partridge and the pear tree, and I would not affect the satin stitches with the doves. I would not suggest a density of 20. It's a really bad idea. Not going to have too many stitches on the fabric using it that way. If I go down a level, I will select just that color. And if I'm outside of 3D and I select a color, you'll notice that that color becomes bold and the other colors kind of fall back a little bit. So that makes it a little bit easier to see. It just boldens the line a little bit and makes it a little bit easier again to see. We've got our leaves here. I'm now selecting at the color layer. If I expand out beyond that, I can get to the individual elements, so I can select one element at a time. If you want to go below that, you can turn on the toggle point list and expand that out, but only if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, where are my input points and what are the X and Y locations of all of those, would you even go that far. So let me collapse all of this back down. You can collapse down to the color, or you can expand out to all of the input elements. Collapse that back down. The order that things appear in this list is the order in which they sew. So the higher in the list, the earlier they sew. If I want to resequence something, I can click on it. So in this case, I'm grabbing the whole design of the partridge. I'm going to resequence that by dragging this down. And as soon as I drag down to where it can go, a line will appear. Pay attention to that line. That's where it's going to insert. When I let go, it will now resequence the design so that the doves are now sewing first and then the partridge. If you're unsure of how this is sewing out, you can always click on slow redraw and watch it sew out on screen. All right, I do want you to be a little bit careful resequencing designs like that. If we look at this partridge design and we just start resequencing, I could have the leaves sew after the bird by dragging them down in the list. Pay attention to that line. I let go. It is now sewing the light green and then the yellow and then the medium green. But you'll notice that I'm now sewing over my bird with travel stitches for my leaves. So digitizers will use sew order to travel from one place to the next without a trim, and then they'll cover that up later. If you're changing the order, you're changing what the digitizer had intended, and you may start to see some of those travel stitches and have some kind of unpredicted results. So just be careful with that. I can fix that just by changing my sew order again back the way that it was, or I could have just hit undo. If I want to group some elements together, I can select multiple elements in here by clicking on one, holding shift, clicking on another, and I will select everything in between. I can then come up here and click on group. What that means is that whenever I select an element, by clicking on it, I will get everything in that group. So I can move them all together. If I have a time when I'm trying to select like a cartoon of in this case a bird, and I want to get the outline and all of the leaves and everything, and I don't want to have to go through my stitch list and find them all, I can just group them that way. I just click on them and move them whenever I want to, and it will select everything in that design. If I want to ungroup it, I simply select it, and you can tell it's grouped because it has a little number 1 beside it. That just means it's the first group I happen to have made today. I can then ungroup it by clicking the next one over. Alright, so we've got our levels, we've got the project level, we've got the design level, below that we've got the color level, below that we have our element level, and then we could go all the way to the toggle input points. If we wanted to, we could also toggle the stitch tab. If I had the room, if I had a second monitor, I might have this up. What that would allow me to do is expand this out a little bit so that I could see all of my stitch information at the same time as all of my element information. Now, I have to really want all of this information and have it all on screen at the same time in order to do that. And honestly, I don't use that amount of information very often at all. I typically just leave my project view up with just that element list, and I'm working from that. So let's get this back to a little bit more normal. I'm going to turn this stitches tab off. I'm going to move this back over. If I want to see the stitches tab every now and then, I do have it available just below here, and that makes it nice and easy for me. So the project view really has a lot of different levels in it that will allow you to manipulate your design very quickly. So you can change everything in a design all at once or everything in a color all at once, and you have access to a variety of properties very easily based on the level that you select in the project view.